Over recent days, an unusual density has settled in the atmosphere around you. A heaviness that cannot be explained by weather patterns or external circumstances, yet it aligns perfectly with the emotional climate that has permeated your reality. Chances are high that you have experienced unexpected unease, an internal alarm that triggers without any apparent justification during your ordinary daily activities. Your rational mind, the part that constantly seeks tangible explanations and concrete evidence, attempts to dismiss this sensation by asserting that everything remains unchanged, that no visible shift has occurred, and that worry serves no purpose. However, deep within, in the space where your most profound intuition resides, you know with certainty that something fundamental has transformed within the invisible architecture of this connection. This is not a creation of imagination or anxiety. This is your innate ability to perceive the vibrations of someone with whom you share a profound bond. When two souls become intertwined by destiny, physical silence does not eliminate energetic communication. What you are sensing now is the echo of a choice made from afar. This message has reached your awareness not randomly, but through resonance. The universe makes no mistakes and does not send signals to those who are unprepared to interpret them. If these words create an inner response within you at this very moment, it is because there exists a precise alignment between your internal state and the truth that is about to be revealed. There are cycles that must conclude before others can begin. This restlessness that prevents you from finding peace, this abrupt awakening during the early morning hours, or this sensation of emptiness in your chest, serve as confirmation that the established equilibrium has been disrupted. Someone at the opposite end of this invisible thread has reached a turning point. This is not a fleeting impulse or a superficial change in mood. This is an internal collapse that has been slowly building, drop by drop, until the vessel finally overflowed. It is crucial to understand that what is occurring is not a personal attack or a deliberate act devoid of affection, even though the isolation it creates may feel exactly like that. What has happened is that this individual has reached the limit of their human and spiritual endurance. We are often taught to value persistence, to remain, to fight. But we are rarely told about the cost of maintaining a situation that no longer resonates with the truth of one's being. This person carries an invisible burden, an accumulation of unspoken words, unfulfilled expectations, and above all, a growing separation from their own essence. The exhaustion being discussed here is not the kind that can be cured by sleep or vacation. This is weariness of the soul, an existential depletion that emerges when someone has been trying to force a reality that no longer fits or gives more energy than they possessed. For a long time, everything may have appeared normal on the surface. Interactions continued, routines were maintained, and smiles, perhaps slightly dimmer, still appeared. But beneath that layer of normalcy, a quiet battle was taking place. A battle between the desire to preserve the connection and the urgent necessity to survive emotionally. The decision to create distance, to fall silent, or to withdraw has been made. Not yesterday. Not today. This was a conclusion reached after numerous sleepless nights, after countless internal debates between heart and mind. This was a silent choice, made in the solitude of one's own consciousness, to protect the little that remains of energetic integrity. The intuition you are experiencing is an alarm detecting this retreat. Despite the absence of a definitive conversation or detailed explanation, energy cannot lie. The absence is felt before the physical withdrawal becomes fully concrete. The change in gaze is felt, the coldness of words, or the delay in responses. This is not indifference. This is self-preservation. This individual has withdrawn into themselves because the external world and the demands of this connection in its current form have become unsustainable. It is important to validate what you are feeling. You are not imagining anything. This fear is confirmation that the connection is genuine. So genuine that your emotional system registers the other's movement as if it were your own. In its infinite wisdom, the universe allows these pauses to occur not to punish, but to realign. Sometimes love alone is insufficient when the structure supporting it is unbalanced. This person has not stepped back because love has vanished, but because the dynamic as it was constructed has depleted their vital reserves. It is equivalent to attempting to run a marathon with an open wound. A moment arrives when the body stops not because it does not want to reach the finish line, but because it needs to heal in order to continue. The decision that has been made is essentially a cry from the soul for help, a request for space to breathe, to rediscover themselves and evaluate whether continuation is possible without losing themselves in the process. Uncertainty is painful, and silence can be the most deafening sound. But within this scenario exists a hidden truth that must be uncovered to find peace. This is not about a definitive ending carved in stone, but about an inevitable energetic outcome. Life demands transformation. If you sense this shift, write the word resonance in the comments. Intuition has brought you here to confirm that yes, something has changed, something has broken, but not to leave you in despair, rather to give you a higher perspective on the facts. This individual could not continue, and their departure is a symptom of something far deeper than simple disinterest. This is the result of the exhausting work of maintaining an identity that could no longer breathe. But to understand why this distance has become inevitable and necessary right now, one must look into the place where the light of consciousness rarely reaches. Into the depths of the psyche and the masks we wear to be loved. To comprehend the magnitude of what is happening, we must turn to one of the most revealing concepts of depth psychology, an idea that Carl Jung explored extensively and that explains this person's behavior with surgical precision. At this moment, everything, without exception. People construct an interface for interacting with the world. A sort of social mask designed to make a good impression, to be accepted, to meet others' expectations, and to protect oneself from rejection. This structure is called the persona, a term derived from the masks that actors in ancient times wore to amplify their voices and define their role in the play. This specific individual, the one your heart is asking about, has worn a very heavy mask for too long, and the weight of this performance has finally caused a breakdown. Imagine for a moment the titanic effort required to maintain an image of strength while feeling fragile inside. Imagine the wear of always being available, always kind, or perhaps always indifferent and in control, when in reality, there are unprocessed emotions within. This person created a personality, a mask that would relate to you and to the world. Perhaps it was the mask of someone who can do everything, or someone who needs no one, or someone who always pleases others. Initially, the mask worked. It was useful. It allowed the relationship to flow and created a false sense of security. But masks are rigid. They do not grow. They do not breathe. And over time, they begin to suffocate the wearer. The exhaustion we are discussing, this, I can no longer bear it, is a direct result of the friction between who this person truly is and who they have been pretending to be. This is not about malicious lies or calculated deception. Most of the time, the mask is unconsciously adopted as a protective mechanism learned in childhood or in past relationships. Someone learns that they must behave in a certain way to receive love, that they must hide certain dark or vulnerable parts, and they begin to play a role. But in a connection with such profound depth, truth always struggles to emerge. The energy required to hold the mask in place is enormous, and a day arrives when the reserves are depleted. What you have recently witnessed, this sharp change, this coldness, or this flight, is precisely the moment when the mask is torn. The person no longer has the life force to maintain the facade. They can no longer pretend that everything is fine, or that they do not care, or that they can handle everything. The psychic system has said enough. The decision to step away is actually a desperate attempt to breathe again. This retreat is not rejection, it is survival. And here lies a truth that can bring relief. This person's struggle is not against you. It is against the role they imposed on themselves to connect with you. The internal battle they are fighting is between their authentic self and the constructed version they believed you needed. Understanding this changes everything. What felt like abandonment is revealed as an act of profound courage. The courage to stop pretending. The courage to say, I cannot continue this way, even if it costs me what I love most. This is not weakness. This is awakening. An awakening that may be painful, but is absolutely necessary for any possibility of authentic connection in the future. But if the mask has fallen, and this person has withdrawn to protect themselves, why do you continue to feel their presence so intensely? Why does it seem that despite the physical silence and visible distance, you are more connected than ever? Here we enter one of the most mysterious and less discussed territories of deep connections, the phenomenon of unconscious telepathy, or what Jung called synchronicity of souls. When two people have built a bond that transcends the superficial, an energetic channel is created that does not depend on physical proximity or verbal communication to remain active. This channel is like an invisible cord that connects heart to heart, consciousness to consciousness. Even when one of the two decides to consciously cut off contact, the channel remains open on the unconscious level. And here is where the paradox occurs. The more this person tries to forget you rationally, the more their soul seeks yours in the invisible realm. Because forgetting is a function of the ego, of the conscious mind. But the soul does not forget. The soul does not obey decisions made from fear or exhaustion. The soul continues to vibrate on the same frequency it always has. And you, being the receptive part of this connection, become the antenna that captures all those signals that the other person is sending without being aware of it. This is not fantasy or romanticism. This is pure energetics. When this individual thinks of you intensely, even if it is to try to push that thought away, an energetic impulse travels through the cord. When they feel regret, though they do not express it, you receive that vibration. When they dream of you, even if they do not remember upon waking, your consciousness registers the visit. You begin to experience what could be called involuntary emotional contamination. Sudden sadness envelops you without apparent cause. Or anxiety arrives without warning, which has nothing to do with what you are doing at that moment. This is not your sorrow, it is theirs. You feel the grief that the other side denies. You process emotions that the other blocks. This is involuntary emotional overflow. The invisible cord works like a communicating vessel. When one of the two containers tries to artificially empty itself, the other fills to restore system balance. Thus, the more this person tries to forget you or distract themselves, the more intensely you feel their energetic presence entering your space. The symptoms of this somatic telepathy are very specific, and you will surely recognize several of them. One of the most common is sleep interruption, especially between 3 and 4 in the morning. In many spiritual and mystical traditions, it is known that during these hours, the veil between consciousness and the unconscious is thinner. If you suddenly wake up without drowsiness and with a feeling of alertness or unease in your chest, it is quite likely that at that very moment, this person's psychic defenses are dropping because they are asleep. When they fall asleep, their ego rests, resistance disappears, and their soul runs to find yours. This sudden awakening, This is the impact of their energy on you when there are no rational barriers to stop it. This unusual insomnia, this is an energetic visitation. Another common symptom is the feeling of pressure in the chest, as if air is missing or as if a physical weight rests on the heart. Sometimes this manifests as accelerated heartbeat without any physical exertion. This energetic center, the heart, is the fulcrum of the connection. When this person thinks of you intensely or experiences sharp regret they do not express verbally, your heart center responds as if someone is pulling an invisible thread from the other end. It is also possible that you have perceived familiar scents, their perfume, or a characteristic aroma associated with them in places where it is physically impossible for them to be. The sense of smell is directly linked to the limbic system, the emotional brain. And these olfactory hallucinations are actually how your intuition translates the proximity of their vibrations. This connection also manifests overwhelmingly in the world of dreams. Dreams cease to be simple processing of daily information and become genuine encounters on the astral plane. Perhaps you have had dreams that seem more vivid than reality itself. Dreams in which communication is fluid, where there is no resentment, where this person speaks to you with the sincerity they cannot express in waking state. In these dreams, they tell you what they suppress while awake. They embrace you or look at you with love they try to hide. Jung suggested that dreams are the door to the truth of the soul. If you constantly dream of this person, it is not only because you miss them, but because at this level there is a coordinated meeting. There, without masks and fear, souls continue the relationship that the ego stopped on earth. Awakening from these dreams usually leaves a bittersweet feeling, a mixture of peace from the reunion and pain from returning to the physical reality of silence. And you may even feel sudden temperature fluctuations, a shiver running down your spine, or sudden heat in your hands or face. This is the manifestation of energy moving through the cord. Sometimes you may be thinking about something completely different, and out of nowhere their name invades your mind with the force of a shout. Or you hear a song meaningful to both of you at the most unlikely moment. All of this is confirmation that denial is merely a fiction of the material plane. At the energy level, you have never been more connected than now. The paradox is cruel, but real. Physical distance has intensified spiritual proximity because the energy of the connection cannot be consumed in daily contact, trivial words, or routine. All this force accumulates and travels through the invisible channel, creating this almost supernatural phenomenology. It is important to learn to distinguish what belongs to you and what belongs to the other, so as not to lose your mind during this process. When you feel an overwhelming emotion that does not correspond to your immediate context, pause and ask yourself internally, is this mine, or is this a visitation? Most of the time you will discover that it is a foreign burden from unconscious loyalty to the connection. Understanding this returns your power. You stop being a victim of mood swings and become an observer of the connection. You know that this person has not forgotten you, that their silence is a pious lie they tell themselves, because if they had truly forgotten you, you would not feel this energetic turmoil in your body. True indifference feels like emptiness, like peace, like nothing. What you feel is turbulence, and turbulence is a sign of life, conflict, and hidden presence. These signals are intense, sometimes exhausting, but they are irrefutable proof that the soul contract is still active. The universe does not waste energy keeping channels open that no longer serve a purpose. If the channel is open and transmitting with such force, it is because the story is not finished. It has only changed stages. It has moved from the visible stage, where the actors left, to the invisible stage, where the play continues with greater dramatic intensity. But these signals can be confusing, and cause fear if they are not validated. Before we delve deeper into the fate of this connection and the higher purpose of this pain, it is important to pause and observe the raw reality of what is felt, to validate that you are not on a solitary journey of imagination, but in a shared resonance. Naturally, after hearing all this, reasonable doubt arises in the mind. It is easy to think that perhaps everything is a product of desire, that the mind invents signs to console itself in the face of absence. That is why this is the moment to pause and look around, to use this space not only as a place for listening, but as a collective mirror. When you begin to understand that this phenomenon exists not only within you, but is reflected in countless other hearts, the pain loses its isolating power. You understand that you are part of a larger process, a movement of the soul that people throughout the world are experiencing. When a connection of such depth enters a phase of transformation, this knowledge does not bring immediate relief, but it brings clarity. And clarity is the first form of peace. Once the truth is spoken or acknowledged, energy begins to reorganize. What today seems like a labyrinth of doubts, tomorrow becomes a traced path. And although you cannot yet see the exit, each breath, each thought, and each conscious decision brings you closer to the point where everything will make sense. Until then, only one thing remains: to trust the process that is larger than both of you and that is guiding you, visible or invisible, step by step to what you must become. If you accept this soul journey, write in the comments, "I trust."